All right, last up, we have the non-documentary of the week, and that is called Night of the Reaper, directed by Brandon Christensen, who directed a movie called Z, which I remember seeing, I want to say, 7 years ago. And I remember it being a cool, weird little horror movie. Faded out of my memory, but now I'm remembering it, and I wanted to go back check it out. Because I remember it being better than you think it would be. And there's another movie he made, I forgot to write it down, that a lot of people have praised. So I feel like Brandon Christensen, it might be a kind of secret, up and coming, interesting genre filmmaker that's just somewhat flying under the radar, and it might just need their big break. And I don't know if this will be their big break, but it's once again a movie that definitely fights way above its, weight. And I will point out once again, Shudder, please make some better movie posters for your movies. A lot of times the movie poster flash screen or whatever they have for the different movies, it just looks cheap and doesn't make the movie look like it will be anything you're interested in. It looks like it's going to be a grade Z, another straight to streaming kind of movie. And a lot of times the movies Shudder has curated are way better than that, if not great. So they need to really get some justice on some graphic design there. Now, that's my call out to Shudder. Not that they're going to ever listen to this, but please just get some interesting artwork there for people to entice people to come in and see these movies that need some love. So, Night of the Reaper. First of all, you've got a few main characters. I'll definitely point out the two main characters, and that's probably the Sheriff Rod, played by Ryan Robbins, and Dina, played by Jessica Clement. And they're probably there's a lot of characters in here, but they're your main ones. So anyway, this movie starts out in kind of the most generic slasher sort of movie way. First of all, it's a period piece, so it's back in the 80s. We've seen this in Stranger Things and all the different years, the Fear Street movies. So it's been done and you're like, okay, I've seen a lot of these movies before. And you have. And this starts out with a young girl, very classic horror trope setup, a young girl babysitting two kids in a house, and things start going weird, and she starts seeing a note left in her in the house. Is there someone in the house with her? When a stranger calls, a thing, and creepy stuff starts happening, and then eventually you see the killer with the knife, and she's doomed, and then you get the title. Night of the Reaper, and and the killer is wearing a mask, like a skull mask with a hood, kind of a Reaper, like a Grim Reaper. And you're like, well, I was thinking to myself, this could be just generic retro slasher knockoff kind of movie. And if it were, it would be fine. We don't have a lot of great slasher movies anymore. It looked like it could be solid. The camera work and the cinematography was bright and clear and crisp. It kind of gave you that old school sort of a feel. It had a neat thing where during the credits, it would have normal cinematography, but when the name would pop up, it would crackle and distort and fuzz out like a videotape. And just stylistically, it seemed to have a little bit of style to it, but not like a super in-your-face, overly colored light, fake 80s sheen style. It had its own kind of a good vibe to it. So I was kind of like giving this a chance. I'm like, I don't know, what is this movie? And then it flash forwards a few years after that girl has been killed, and your basic setup is you have this police officer, I told you before, the sheriff, and his wife had died very close to the time of that murder in a car wreck, so he's still in a bad place. And this young girl is coming back from college, Dina, and Dina had obviously been around during the time of that killing. She remembers it, and she is back in town trying to reconnect. Very Stephen King in that way. And very quickly, her old friend back there who has a babysitting job convinces Dina to take her job for her that night because Dina's friend is sick. So Dina takes the babysitting job. She's babysitting the sheriff's son. So you're, okay, this is going to all come together somehow. And you're thinking like, oh, it's just going to be like she's going to get stalked by the same killer, blah, 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 blah. But it ends up being a lot more interesting than that. It ends up being this interesting mystery scavenger hunt, not overly gory, this is not a Terrifier kind of a style of movie. It's almost old school in the amount of gore you get, which is not a lot, but a lot of suspense and tension. And the basic idea is this. Out of nowhere, a box shows up on the doorstep of the sheriff. And inside the box is a videotape. And I think it said like Night of the Reaper or something like that. And in it you see, I remember the first one. I think the first one was I'm trying to remember what it was now. But it was some footage that showed that the person had been close to the killing, the old babysitter killing. And what happens is each of these videotapes leads the police officer to go to a location from that old, related somehow to that old killing, and find another clue, essentially. Like I said, a scavenger hunt, like either another videotape. At one point he finds a garage door opener. Well, that has a meaning behind it. So you're getting this interesting mystery that you're following, and he's about to go off the hinges because he's very emotionally unstable. And then meanwhile, you've got Dina basically being a babysitter, and you're wondering what's going to happen to her. And that alone would be a pretty good, solid indie horror movie setup. And it is. And it's done effectively, and it's some really good tension. Like I said, if you want the really gory, out of the gate kind of movie, it's not that. But if you're enjoying that vibe, you're going to really enjoy this movie. And I'd say that enough would be good, three-star movie or whatever. But let's just say there are some twists and turns that happen in the last third of this movie, especially in the last third of this movie, that really elevate this movie. I mean, and it is a little bit preposterous. And if you get too logically minded about it, which I can be sometimes, you might look at it and go, oh, that's that. Wait, what? How's that happening? But if you just go with it, it really, I think, really elevates the movie into a very nice little horror movie. I had a lot of fun with this. There also, I want to point out, the trope that drives me crazy, and I think Eric is on my boat on this one, is the dead dog trope, where you have, an animal, like a family pet is shown early in a movie, and you're like, well, that family pet's obviously going to die, get killed by the killer, so that later you'll feel terrible and you'll be mad at the killer. It's just a very cynical way to get quick emotion. And there's a use of dead dogs in this movie that I did not see coming, and that was well done. And I love dogs, so don't get me wrong, but I mean, it played with the trope, but also used it in a way that was actually integral to the story and part of the plot. So I'll point that out. I'm going to go 4 stars on Night of the Reaper. I think this movie has a real chance, at least for horror fans, of being a little sleeper hit. I could see this kind of garnering some real cult love over the next few years. Once again, it's not going to knock people's socks off with crazy gore and just over-the-top Terrifier type of stuff, because it's not that kind of dumb, blunt force trauma. It really wants to give you some style, give you some interesting, clever storytelling with a real great lead. I really liked Jessica Clement playing Dina. You could really sympathize with her and root for her, and even when things are turning around and getting weird, that's a real key to a movie like this, because if you have just dead, not literally, but just emotionally just dead and dumb, just characters there to be killed, then these movies for me just can fall flat really quickly. And by having a real identifiable main character, and actually not even having that big of a body count at all, just having this character and an interesting story, I think you really give it a chance for the movie to have some legs, and I think this will. Night of the Reaper, 4 stars. Once again, a really solid week. What would I suggest? It depends on your mood. If you want a cool little indie horror movie that, is absolutely probably under your radar, Night of the Reaper is great.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.